Ryan Carter never expected his life to change at a peace summit. He was just a human diplomat, here to shake hands, smile at cameras, and, hopefully, not get vaporized by some aggressive alien species. But now, he stood in the middle of a grand alien throne room, surrounded by warriors twice his size, while an entire empire stared at him in shock. The Empress of the Zevethar Dominion, Zyra, had just pointed at him and declared, "I choose Ryan Carter as my champion." Silence filled the room. Then, chaos erupted. Alien nobles gasped. Some warriors slammed their fists against their chests in protest. A high-ranking warlord stepped forward, his deep voice booming across the chamber. "This is madness," he shouted. "A human? A fragile outsider. He cannot defend our Empress." Ryan's brain struggled to keep up. Champion. Defend. He had come here to discuss peace trees, not get drafted into an intergalactic fight club. He turned to Zyra. Your Majesty, mind explaining what's going on?" Zyra's expression remained unreadable, but her golden eyes studied him carefully. By Zevethari law, the ruler's strength is judged by the worth of their chosen champion. If I wish to keep my throne, my champion must prove himself. Ryan blinked. Prove myself? How? Before she could answer, the warlord let out a dark chuckle. He fights, of course, unless he would rather admit weakness and flee. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Ryan rubbed his temples. He had a bad feeling about this. A cultural catastrophe. 10 minutes later, Ryan stood in a grand arena, wearing unfamiliar battle armor that barely fit, while an alien announcer bellowed words he didn't understand. Thousands of Zevethari warriors cheered, clearly expecting an entertaining fight. Opposite him stood his opponent, a hulking alien twice his size, covered in ritual scars and heavy battle gear. The warrior cracked his knuckles and grinned, eager to crush the so-called champion. Ryan swallowed hard. "Okay, let's be reasonable. I'm not a warrior. Maybe we can talk this out." The alien charged. Ryan barely dodged, tumbling to the ground. The crowd roared in laughter. Zyra, watching from the royal balcony, covered her face in her hands. "Fight back, human," one of the nobles shouted. Ryan scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. He was no fighter, but he was fast. And if brute strength wasn't an option, he'd have to be smart. His opponent lunged again. This time, Ryan sidestepped at the last second, causing the warrior to slam headfirst into a stone pillar. The crowd gasped. Ryan smirked. "All right, maybe I can work with this." The warrior growled and swung wildly, but Ryan ducked and weaved, dodging every attack. Finally, spotting an opening, he grabbed a loose piece of armor from his opponent's shoulder and yanked hard. The warrior lost balance, tripping over his own feet and crashing onto his back. Silence. Then, cheering. Ryan stood there, panting. "Did I win?" The announcer hesitated before declaring in a booming voice, "Victory to the champion." Ryan let out a nervous laugh. "I can't believe that worked." The aftermath. Back in the throne room, Ryan stood beside Zyra as nobles debated his unexpected victory. Some begrudgingly admitted that he had used strategy. Others were furious that a human had bested a Zevethari warrior at all. Zyra finally raised a hand, silencing the chamber. She turned to Ryan, her expression unreadable. "You were not my first choice, Ryan Carter, but you surprised me today." Ryan crossed his arms. "Yeah, well, I'd appreciate a warning next time before throwing me into an alien deathmatch." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Then you'd better start preparing. This was only the beginning." Ryan groaned. Of course it was. Little did he know, things were about to get much, much worse. Ryan Carter barely had time to catch his breath before things got worse. The moment he stepped out of the arena, warriors, nobles, and advisors swarmed him, some demanding explanations, others yelling in outrage. A few stared at him, as if trying to figure out how a fragile human had just defeated one of their best fighters. Zyra remained calm. Walking beside him like this was all part of a normal day. Ryan, on the other hand, felt like he had been thrown into an alien soap opera. One noble, an older Zevethari with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "This is an insult. Our Empress chooses a human as her champion." He lacks the strength of a true warrior. Ryan sighed. You're welcome. By the way, I did just win. The noble scoffed. By trickery, not by strength. Ryan threw up his hands. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you prefer I let your guy break my ribs? Zyra held up a hand, silencing the murmurs around them. Strength comes in many forms. Today, my champion proved that strategy can defeat brute force. Ryan smirked. Exactly. And if anyone else wants to test that theory, I suggest we do it over a game of chess instead of another fight. Zyra ignored him. Instead, she turned toward a massive stone wall inside the throne room. Carved into the surface were hundreds of ancient symbols and names. Some were scratched out, some were etched in gold. Ryan frowned. What is this? Zyra's golden eyes flickered toward him. The Wall of Champions, those who have defended the throne. Their names are honored here. Before Ryan could process what that meant, she grabbed an ornate dagger from a ceremonial stand. Without hesitation, she pressed it into his palm. He stared at it. What am I supposed to do with this? Zyra met his gaze. Carve your name. You are now part of Zephytheri history. The chamber fell into silence. Ryan suddenly felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes on him. Slowly, he stepped forward, pressing the blade against the smooth stone. As the dagger cut through, a faint golden glow followed the letters. The magic of the throne recognizing him. Ryancarter. The moment he finished, a deep chime rang through the hall. The warriors stiffened. The nobles whispered. Ryan turned back to Zyra. So, that's it. I'm officially your champion now. Zyra's smirk returned. Oh no, human. That was only the beginning. A clash of worlds. Ryan barely had time to react before he was dragged into a royal meeting chamber. A massive table stretched across the room, covered in holographic maps, battle plans, and diplomatic messages. Alien advisors stood at attention, waiting for Zyra to speak. Ryan rubbed his temples. I don't suppose this is where we discuss retirement benefits. A warrior shot him a glare. Zyra didn't even glance at him as she addressed her council. There is already a challenge to my rule. One of my rivals has called for a trial by combat. Ryan's heart sank. Wait, you mean another fight? Zyra finally looked at him. Of course. Ryan groaned. You couldn't have mentioned that before I signed up. The advisors exchanged glances. One of them, a tall warrior with a deep voice, spoke. The duel is tomorrow. The challenger is Lord Varric, a former general. He believes our Empress has weakened the throne. ***. Ryan slumped into a chair. So let me get this straight. I fight again, or you lose the throne. Zyra nodded. Yes. Ryan stared at the ceiling. I hate space politics. A moment of honesty. Later that night, Ryan found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the alien capital. The city was breathtaking. Massive golden towers, glowing sky bridges, ships weaving through the air like birds. It would have been beautiful if he wasn't too stressed to enjoy it. He felt a presence beside him. Zyra. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then, Ryan sighed. Be honest with me. Why did you choose me? Zyra's gaze didn't waver. Because you are unpredictable. Ryan blinked. That's it. Zyra smirked. The Zephytheri are warriors. We fight with honor, with strength, with skill. But you? You fight with words, with wit, with tricks. My enemies will not know how to defeat you because you do not fight like a Zephytheri. Ryan crossed his arms. So you're saying I'm too weird to predict? She gave a small chuckle. Exactly. Ryan shook his head, smiling despite himself. You know, if we make it through this, you owe me dinner. Zyra raised an eyebrow. Are you asking your Empress on a date? Ryan shrugged. Call it whatever you want, but I don't fight for free. Zyra studied him for a long moment before replying. Win tomorrow, and we shall see. Ryan grinned. Now that's motivation. Little did he know, tomorrow's battle would be far deadlier than the last. Ryan Carter stood in the grand dueling arena, gripping the hilt of his borrowed weapon. The sword was sleek and elegant, but it still felt way too heavy in his hands. He sighed, rolling his shoulders as the crowd roared from the stands above. Thousands of Zevethari warriors, nobles, and common citizens had gathered to watch their Empress's human champion face his next opponent. Across from him, Lord Varric stepped forward, his heavy boots crushing the arena's smooth stone. Varric was a towering figure, his armor gleaming under the twin suns. His expression was carved from stone, cold, ruthless, and completely confident. Ryan, on the other hand, was very much not confident. "This is insane," he muttered under his breath. Zyra stood at the edge of the platform, her golden eyes locked onto him. She had warned him last night. Varric was no fool. Unlike the last warrior, who relied on brute strength, this one was a strategist, a veteran of countless battles. He wouldn't fall for simple tricks. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. "The trial by combat begins. To victory or surrender." Ryan's eyes widened. "Wait, surrender is an option." Varric didn't answer. He was already moving. With blinding speed, the Zevethari warrior lunged forward, his blade flashing toward Ryan's side. Ryan barely managed to dodge, stumbling backward. The force of the strike left a deep gash in the stone where he had been standing just a second before. Ryan's heart pounded. "Okay, no games. This guy is serious." Fighting smarter, not harder, Ryan had exactly two advantages. 1. Varric didn't know how humans fought. The Zevethari were used to warriors who met force with force, but Ryan was not a warrior. He was fast, unpredictable, and most importantly, annoying. 2. Ryan could talk. "Okay, I get it. You're scary. You work out. But have you ever considered?" He dodged another strike, just barely avoiding the edge of Varric's sword. "That maybe you should try meditation, yoga? A hobby that doesn't involve trying to stab people." Varric's expression didn't change. He swung again. Ryan ducked, rolling under the attack. He could hear the murmurs from the crowd. They didn't know what to make of this. The Zevethari valued direct combat, honor, power, but Ryan was weaving, dodging, staying just out of reach. "What's wrong, Varric?" Ryan called. "Never fought someone who talks this much." The warrior growled, his stance shifting. "Good. That means I'm getting to him." Ryan waited for the next attack. This time, when Varric lunged, Ryan didn't dodge. He sidestepped at the last second, letting the warrior's own momentum throw him off balance. Varric stumbled forward, just slightly. It was a small opening. But small openings win battles. Ryan slammed the hilt of his sword into the back of Varric's knee. The warrior buckled. The crowd gasped. Before Varric could recover, Ryan was already behind him, pressing the edge of his sword lightly against his back. Varric froze. Ryan grinned. "You wanna call it?" The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Varric dropped his sword. The arena erupted in chaos. Some shouted in outrage. Others stared in disbelief. And somewhere in the crowd, Ryan swore he heard someone laughing. The announcer's voice rang out. "The champion is victorious." Ryan let out a breath. "Oh, thank God." The Empress's reward. Ryan was still catching his breath when Zyra approached. Her golden gaze studied him carefully. "You did well." Ryan smirked. "That's an understatement. I just beat a guy who looks like he could break a spaceship in half." Zyra's lips curled into a small smile. "You are unpredictable." Ryan shrugged. "It's a gift." Before he could say anything else, Zyra reached forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch was firm, grounding. "You have defended my throne twice." Her voice was softer now, just enough that only he could hear. "And you asked for a reward, did you not?" Ryan blinked. "Wait, you actually listened to that?" Zyra's smirk deepened. "Come." She turned, leading him away from the crowd. Ryan followed, his heart pounding for an entirely different reason. He had no idea what was coming next. Ryan followed Empress Zyra down the quiet corridors of the palace, his heart still racing from the duel. The roaring cheers from the arena had faded into the distance, leaving only the soft echo of their footsteps on the polished stone floor. He had no idea what was about to happen. He had won. Again, somehow, he had outsmarted another warrior, proving himself as Zyra's chosen champion. But this time, there was something different in the air, something heavier, more personal. Xyra had promised him a reward, and now he was about to find out what that meant. A private conversation. They entered a grand chamber lined with towering banners of deep crimson and gold. The doors shut behind them with a quiet thud, leaving them alone. Xyra turned to face him, arms crossed, her golden eyes studying him carefully. "You continue to surprise me, Ryan Carter." Ryan let out a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his neck. "I get that a lot." She stepped closer, tilting her head slightly. "I was prepared for you to fail." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Wow, thanks for the vote of confidence." Xyra's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "And yet, you did not fail. Twice now you have defended my claim to the throne. That is no small thing." Ryan shrugged. "Hey, I told you, I may not be the best fighter, but I know how to handle impossible situations." Xyra studied him for a moment longer, then finally spoke. "You have earned a boon, as is our custom." Ryan blinked. "A boon?" Xyra nodded. "A reward. You may ask for anything within my power to grant." Ryan's mind raced. He had about 1,000 sarcastic responses lined up, but something in her tone told him this was serious. Anything within her power. He could ask for wealth, power, a way back to Earth. But instead, he found himself blurting out, "I want answers." Xyra raised an eyebrow. "Answers?" Ryan nodded. "I want to know why I'm here. Why did you choose me? Out of every warrior in the galaxy, why a human from Earth?" Xyra exhaled slowly, as if she had expected this question. She gestured toward a large, circular window overlooking the city below. Beyond the palace walls, the twin suns were beginning to set, bathing the skyline in hues of violet and gold. "It was not a matter of choice," she said finally. "It was fate." Ryan frowned. Not really an answer. Xyra's gaze remained fixed on the city. "Our laws are clear. When a ruler is challenged, they may call upon a champion, a warrior who will fight in their place." She turned to him. "The moment my claim was questioned, the sacred right activated, and it chose you." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. "Wait, you're saying some kind of mystical space law just yanked me across the universe?" "In a sense." Ryan ran a hand down his face. "Great, so I wasn't chosen because I'm special. I was chosen because of some random ancient magic." Xyra tilted her head. "Perhaps, or perhaps the right saw something in you that even I cannot yet see." Ryan met her gaze. For the first time, he saw something there, something deeper, beyond her cold and calculating exterior. Something uncertain, an unspoken understanding. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Xyra did something unexpected. She placed a hand on his shoulder, firm and steady, not commanding, not formal, just steady. "You may not have been born into this world, Ryan Carter, but you are part of it now." Ryan swallowed. There was something different in her tone, something that made his heart beat a little faster. Xyra took a step back. "Rest for now. Tomorrow, the real battle begins." Ryan exhaled, shaking his head. Fantastic. No pressure. But as she turned to leave, he found himself watching her a little longer than necessary. Because whether he liked it or not, something was changing. And he wasn't sure if it was just the fate of the throne at stake anymore. The next day, Ryan stood at the edge of the grand arena, his heart pounding in his chest. The sun, now fully risen, cast a golden glow over the entire city of Vestra, but it was the sight in front of him that had his pulse racing. The arena was enormous, a vast stone coliseum built into the side of a mountain. Crowds of thousands of Vestrian citizens filled the stands, their eyes eagerly fixed on the center. The air was electric with excitement, and Ryan could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. Beside him stood Empress Xyra, her expression unreadable. As always, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that she had something more planned for him, something beyond just the usual combat challenges. "Ready?" Xyra asked, her voice calm, but there was a glint of something in her eyes, almost like she was daring him to back down. Ryan nodded, though his stomach twisted. "You know, I was hoping for something a little less dramatic." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't respond. Instead, she motioned for the ancient gate in front of them to open. The heavy stone doors creaked loudly as they swung open, revealing a dark, shadowy passage leading deeper into the arena. A test of strength and will. Rian stepped forward, following Xyra's lead. As they entered the passage, the temperature seemed to drop. The walls of the tunnel were carved with symbols and markings, remnants of an ancient tradition. "What's this?" Rian asked, his voice low, curiosity getting the best of him. "A test," Xyra replied. "One that no champion has yet passed, but I believe you can." Rian couldn't tell if she was being serious or if she was toying with him, but he had come this far. There was no turning back now. They'd reached the center of the arena, and Rian immediately understood what she meant. The floor had transformed. Instead of sand, it was now covered in spinning platforms, jagged rock formations, and enormous floating crystals. The challenge was no longer just about physical strength. It was a battle of strategy, wit, and survival. From all sides, the ancient guardians began to materialize, towering figures made of stone and energy, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. They were silent but deadly, moving with precision and purpose. Rian's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary fight. Xyra, watching from a high platform, gave him a nod. Survive. Impress them. As the guardians moved toward him, Rian took a deep breath, mentally preparing himself. He knew that brute force wouldn't win this battle. The battle unfolds. The first guardian lunged at him with surprising speed, its stone fists swinging toward him. Rian dodged to the side, his feet skidding on the smooth floor. He was no expert fighter, but his quick thinking and improvised tactics had gotten him this far. Rian's mind raced as he grabbed one of the floating crystals, swinging it at the guardian's head. The stone guardian faltered, but before Rian could capitalize on his advantage, another one appeared in front of him, its stone arms raised. "Great," Rian muttered under his breath. He had to think fast. He glanced around, looking for something. Anything that could help. His eyes landed on a massive stone pillar at the far end of the arena. A crack ran down its side, and Rian could tell that with a little effort, he might be able to bring it down. With a determined look, he ran toward it, dodging the guardian's strikes. He leaped and slammed into the pillar with his shoulder, causing it to groan and wobble. The guardians charged after him, but Rian wasn't slowing down. With a final push, the pillar tumbled to the ground, creating a massive shockwave that sent the guardians stumbling. Rian used the distraction to his advantage, darting between the stone figures and slicing at their limbs with a shard of crystal. The guardians began to crack and crumble, their energy flickering. It was a tough battle, but Rian had proven something to the ancient arena. Xyra's quiet approval. When the last of the guardians fell, the arena fell silent. Rian stood panting, sweat dripping down his face. He was exhausted, every muscle aching, but he had done it. Xyra appeared at the edge of the arena, watching him with a smirk on her lips. "Impressive," she said, her tone cold, but there was a glint of something, admiration. Rian wiped his brow, trying to catch his breath. "You said this was a test." That was an understatement. Xyra stepped down from her platform and walked toward him, her eyes still sharp. "You've earned my respect, but this is only the beginning. There is much more at stake now than just the throne." Rian frowned. He didn't know whether he was ready for whatever came next, but one thing was clear. His bond with Xyra was growing stronger. Whether that meant they could work together or not, he wasn't sure, but he was beginning to feel something beyond the duty of a champion. The days that followed the arena challenge were tense, to say the least. Rian couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling toward something bigger, something beyond just physical battles. The quiet, contemplative look Xyra kept giving him didn't help either. As they walked through the palace's grand halls, the sounds of distant laughter and chatter echoed. Yet despite the bustling life around them, the atmosphere between him and Xyra was anything but light. Xyra had always been distant, cold even, but today there was something different in her demeanor. She didn't seem as emotionally detached as usual. There was a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, a vulnerability she probably didn't want anyone to see. And as much as Rian told himself not to think too much about it, he couldn't help but wonder what was really going on inside her head. Finally, as they entered a large council chamber, Syra turned to face him. "You're going to have to prove yourself again, Ryan," she said, her voice steady, but filled with a sense of urgency. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I'm still not sure what this proving myself business is all about. I mean, I've been doing your dirty work, but what exactly am I proving here?" Zara glanced at the massive map of the galaxy sprawled across the wall. The planets were marked in red, showing the territories that had been claimed by other species. One area near the outer rim glowed brightly. "This is the Vestrian Coalition. We're a proud, strong people, but there's a delicate balance of power right now. The Shurken, a fierce and brutal race, are threatening the stability of the entire galaxy. They've been making moves against us, testing our strength." Ryan stepped forward, trying to absorb what she was saying. "So what does that have to do with me?" Zira met his eyes, her gaze unwavering. "You're my champion, Ryan. I've chosen you because I need you to represent me. We're not just fighting in the arena anymore. I'm sending you to Neelith Prime, the heart of the Shurken Empire, to negotiate a peace treaty." Ryan blinked in disbelief. "Wait, what? You want me to negotiate peace with the Shurken? That's like asking a rabbit to negotiate with a wolf." Zyra didn't flinch. "You'll be fine. I've seen your skills, Ryan. You think with your heart and your head, and that's what will win this." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, feeling the pressure of the moment. Negotiating with the Shurken wasn't just dangerous, it was nearly impossible. They were known for their brutal methods and relentless thirst for power. What could he possibly say that would make them back down? "And you think I can do this? Just like that?" Ryan asked, still incredulous. Zyra's expression softened slightly. "I have no choice but to trust you. If you fail, the entire galaxy could fall into chaos. We don't have time to wait." There it was again, the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Ryan could see how much this mission meant to her. This wasn't just about power or the throne, it was about survival. The journey begins. The next morning, after brief preparations, Ryan found himself boarding a sleek Vestrian warship with Syra by his side. Their destination was Neelith Prime, the Shurken homeworld, and it would take days of travel through dangerous, uncharted space. The quiet between them was thick, the only sounds being the hum of the ship's engines. Ryan leaned against the window, staring at the stars rushing past. The sight was beautiful, but his mind kept drifting back to the task at hand. Zira broke the silence first. "I know you have doubts, Ryan, but I'm not sending you to fail. The Shurken may be brutal, but they also respect strength, and you've already proven you have that." Ryan turned to look at her. There was a hint of warmth in her voice, a subtle reassurance. He wasn't used to this side of her, but he couldn't help but appreciate it. "You have a strange way of showing it," Ryan said with a smirk. Syra's lips twitched, but she didn't smile. Instead, she looked out at the stars, her voice softening. "You'll be representing me when you enter their territory, Ryan. That's more than just a title. It's my trust." Ryan took a deep breath. "I won't let you down." Zira met his gaze, and for the briefest of moments, he could see something deeper in her eyes. A trust, yes, but also a fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the Shurken, fear of everything that could go wrong. But there was something else there, too, a connection that had grown between them in the most unlikely of ways. Ryan wasn't sure if it was love. He didn't want to rush things, but there was something undeniably real between them, and for once, he wasn't afraid of it. As the ship neared Neelith Prime, Ryan's anxiety grew. He didn't know what to expect from the Shurken, but he knew it wasn't going to be easy. The vast, dark expanse of space stretched endlessly around them as they approached the planet's atmosphere. As the ship descended through the swirling clouds of Neelith Prime, the oppressive atmosphere of the planet pressed down on Ryan's shoulders. The land below was dark and rugged, its jagged mountains and deep valleys casting long shadows. Ryan could feel the weight of the mission growing heavier with every passing second. Beside him, Syra stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Ryan tried to focus on his breathing, reminding himself that he was here for peace. Negotiation. But everything in him screamed that this was a trap. The Shurken didn't negotiate, they conquered. The ship touched down with a gentle thud, and the doors slid open. The stench of the planet hit Ryan immediately, harsh, metallic, and unmistakably alien. He forced himself to step out of the ship, his boots making a soft thump on the rocky ground. They were on a plateau overlooking a vast valley, the Shirkan capital far below, a sprawling city of towering spires and endless black metal. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he saw them approaching. Shirkan warriors, their towering forms were covered in thick armor, their eyes glowing a faint red in the dim light. They were intimidating, even more so than the stories Ryan had heard. But what struck him the most was their quiet discipline. They moved in perfect formation, not a word exchanged between them. One of the warriors stepped forward, a tall figure who looked like he commanded the others. Rock, a general from the Shirkan army, walked toward Ryan and Syra with a fierce, almost mocking grin on his face. His steps echoed in the silence, and his presence seemed to cast a shadow over everything. "So this is the champion of the Vestrian Empress," Rock said, his voice deep and guttural. "I've heard much about you, human." Ryan stood tall, meeting Rock's gaze. "I'm here for peace, not games." Rock's grin faded slightly, but his eyes gleamed with challenge. "Peace? The Shirkan have no need for peace. We take what we want, always have, always will." Syra stepped forward, her posture regal but tense. "That's not why we're here today, Rock. We seek an alliance, not a war. We need to end the bloodshed before we all fall." Rock's laugh was low and harsh, but it carried an edge of something darker. "An alliance? You think we will bow to your weak human emotions?" He pointed to Ryan. "And you bring this one to negotiate? A human champion, no less." Ryan's muscles tensed. "I'm here to ensure that no one else dies, not even your people." He looked past Rock, to the sprawling city in the distance. "What will it take for you to realize we're all on the same side?" Rock's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Syra raised her hand, signaling Ryan to stand down. "Enough, Rock. This is why we're here. To talk, not to fight." Rock studied them both for a long moment before nodding curtly. "Very well. You'll come with me. The Empress can wait." Ryan exchanged a quick glance with Syra. This wasn't the welcome they had expected, but it was better than an immediate fight. They followed Rock into the Shirkan stronghold, a dark labyrinth of corridors and rooms that looked as though they were carved from the very stone of the planet itself. The walls were adorned with banners, depicting the Shirkan's brutal victories and their history of conquest. Ryan couldn't help but feel the weight of their power pressing in on him, but he knew he had to stay focused. He had one shot at this. They were led to a large hall at the heart of the stronghold. At the far end of the room, the Shirkan leader awaited them. His presence was commanding. There was no mistaking his power. Torak, the Shirkan High Warlord, stood tall and proud, his glowing red eyes locked onto Ryan. His deep voice boomed through the room. "You dare come to our home and ask for peace?" Torak's voice echoed like thunder. "You are bold, human, but I have no interest in alliances. What do you offer that will make us listen?" Ryan felt the pressure building, the weight of the moment heavy on his chest. His mind raced as he thought of how to answer, but then he remembered Syra's words. Strength is more than just muscle. It's will. It's the ability to stand when the world around you is trying to bring you down. He took a step forward. "I offer something you haven't considered, the chance to build something that lasts, something more than just conquest. If you destroy everything, what will you have left?" He looked directly at Torak. "I offer you a future where your people don't have to keep fighting, where you can finally have peace without sacrificing your honor." Torak's eyes narrowed, studying Ryan. The silence was unbearable. Ryan could feel Syra's gaze on him, silent and supportive. Ryan didn't let up. "I may not understand everything, but I know this. War only leaves ashes, and your people deserve more than that." For a moment, the room was silent. Ryan had done what he could. Now he had to wait. The tension in the room was unbearable. Ryan could feel his palms sweating as he stood there, waiting for Torak's response. The massive warlord was silent, his red eyes glowing in the dim light of the hall. The weight of the decision was evident on his face, and Ryan couldn't help but wonder what was going through his mind. Beside him, Syra remained calm, though Ryan could tell she was just as anxious as he was. Her posture was rigid, her expression unreadable, but her hand brushed his subtly, a gesture of silent reassurance. He squeezed her hand, his nerves momentarily easing from her touch. They were in this together. Finally, Torek spoke, his deep voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Your words are unexpected, but I will not make a decision in haste. You will have one chance to prove your claim, human. Show me that you understand what it means to truly fight for the future. If you succeed, we may consider your offer." Ryan's heart raced. "What do you want me to do?" Torek's gaze shifted to a nearby table, where a set of weapons lay. Blades, jagged and gleaming, clearly designed for combat. "You will fight," Torek said simply. "Prove your strength, your will. Defeat one of my best warriors. If you win, we will listen." Ryan's stomach tightened. A fight. It was everything he had feared. But he couldn't back down now, not with Zyra's hope and the future of the galaxy on the line. "All right, I'll fight," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Rock, who had been watching silently, stepped forward with a smirk. "You'll regret this, human. My warriors are not as forgiving as you think." He waved his hand, and one of the Shirkan warriors stepped forward, tall and imposing. He was heavily armored, his expression cold and unyielding. Ryan knew this wasn't going to be easy. The warrior was handed a massive spear, its shaft gleaming in the low light. Ryan took a deep breath. He wasn't used to this kind of combat. On Earth, he had been trained in diplomacy, negotiation, strategy. Not fighting like this. But he was no stranger to the human instinct for survival. Zyra stepped up beside him, her eyes meeting his with a mix of pride and concern. "You can do this," she said softly. "I believe in you." Ryan nodded, trying to push his doubts aside. The fight wasn't just about strength, it was about strategy. Finding a way to outwit the warrior. He had to think. The gong sounded, and the warrior charged. Ryan barely had time to react as the spear came crashing toward him. He ducked just in time, the tip of the spear grazing his shoulder. The warrior's speed was impressive, but Ryan had one advantage. He knew how to use his environment. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding another thrust. The warrior was relentless, but Ryan's mind raced, searching for an opening. With a swift movement, Ryan grabbed a nearby piece of metal from the ground, a broken piece of the Shirkan's armor, and swung it at the warrior's spear, knocking it from his hands. The crowd of Shirkan warriors gasped, and even Torek raised an eyebrow in surprise. The warrior snarled, drawing a second weapon, a curved blade. Ryan wasn't sure how much longer he could keep this up. He wasn't as skilled as his opponent, but he had the element of surprise on his side. He darted to the side again, using his agility to outmaneuver the warrior's strikes. As the warrior lunged, Ryan made his move. With a quick and calculated motion, he disarmed the warrior, sending the blade flying across the room. The crowd was silent, but Ryan didn't stop. He pressed forward, using all his strength to force the warrior into a corner. The Shirkan's eyes were wide with shock, and for a moment, Ryan saw something in them: respect. The warrior finally dropped to his knees, unable to continue the fight. Ryan stood over him, panting, his heart pounding in his chest. The silence stretched on for a few heartbeats before Torek spoke again, his voice low and impressed. "You have more strength in you than I expected, human," Torek said. "Your will is undeniable. You fight not for yourself, but for something greater. I can see that now." Ryan lowered his weapon, breathing heavily, his body aching from the exertion. He had done it. He had won. Zyra stepped forward, her eyes bright with pride. She didn't say anything. Words weren't necessary. Her hand found his once more, and this time, the strength of their connection was palpable. Ryan knew that whatever happened next, they had made a difference. They had taken the first step toward peace. Torek regarded them both carefully, his face unreadable for a moment. Finally, he spoke. "You have earned my respect, human. The Shirkan will listen. We will hear your proposal." Ryan exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The fight was over. The real battle, the one for peace, had just begun.